and welcome to Sacred Mindshift Circle. I'm your host, Dahlia DeVerdonalds. Today, we are honored to welcome Derrick Dunn, CEO and founder of Dunn Solutions, and an experienced high school chemistry teacher and STEM educator with a community of more than 25,000 students. Derrick is the author of Simple Solution to Understanding Chemistry, General Chemistry 1, a book created to make chemistry more accessible, practical, and easier to understand for learners of all backgrounds. His mission is to break down complex scientific concepts into clear, simple ideas that help students build confidence and curiosity in science. And through his work, Derrick is dedicated to transforming how chemistry is taught, especially for students who may not traditionally have strong access to STEM support, showing that science can be both understandable and empowering. So, welcome, Derrick. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm actually honored to be on this podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good too. And I mean, I saw like some of your videos on TikTok and I was like really stoked about it because I was like, oh my God, chemistry, physics, all of these kinds of things for me. Like, I still have issues with math. So imagine chemistry. I think I retain like some ideas, but overall, it was something that I always looked at as like really difficult.
Mm.
And I like the way that you were like teaching the concepts of how to like transfer, I guess, the electrons and all this. And I think it was pretty cool. And I think a lot of kids might get it that way. So, first, I want you to just begin with sharing a little bit about your background. Like, what led you into teaching chemistry? Because I'm a teacher too, but I always stayed away from that. What led you to choose this subject? And, especially because it's like sometimes pretty challenging.
Okay. The reason why I chose chemistry is because when I was 8 years old, I unfortunately lost my grandmother to lung cancer. And so I wasn't really aware like how she died. So when I asked my mom, like, hey, how did grandma pass? And she said lung cancer, I swear to God, within the next 5 seconds, I decided that I'm gonna be a chemist. And so that started the journey of me just, gravitating towards science overall. And um, I was as a high school student, I wasn't the most studious, but I still had that plan in mind. So when it got time to go to college, I actually was not aware of where I was going because I wasn't that proactive on applying for colleges. My mom did a lot of the work for me. But I ended up going to Alcorn State University, which is a HBCU located in Lorman, Mississippi, which is like an hour and a half away from Jackson, Mississippi, to give you like some type of like conceptualization of it. Um, and what's crazy is that I I'm sorry, I decided to be a chemistry major in college without having chemistry knowledge. So yeah, I was like the rest of y'all. Like because I wanted to be a marine biology originally, but all the schools that I could not go to because of my grades, because again, I wasn't studious. Um, I was forced to go to Alcorn, and I'm like, okay, well, I can't be a marine biologist, so I'm just going to pick chemistry. And again, this is me picking chemistry without knowing how to do conversions, without having to do balancing equations, without having to do anything. And I was, I'm just going to be a chemistry major. And I had so on my ACT, I had scored really high on the science portion, which awarded me to be in the honors portion of chemistry 101, or chemistry, general chemistry, Chem 101. Yeah, I was right, 101 in freshman year. And that's where I met my professor, Dr. Boyd. Dr. Boyd was a 49-year-old man at the time, and he taught chemistry the way I teach it. So like he would purposely teach the concept from a formal lens, and he'll be like, how many of you understood us? I mean, how many of you all understood me? And we just look at him like, no one understood you, bro. And so he was like, okay, how about this? And he told a little story, and we all got it. And I was like, how did he do that? How did he do that? Because I actually understood him. Like I literally understood what he said. And so, that small moment is what made me like go to his class without missing any day. Because it was like, bro, that was so cool. And so like he didn't teach me how to do this, but my brain or me, I was just watching him so closely that I literally caught the rhythm of what he was doing. And I actually passed that class with a C because again, I'm still not as studious because I'm still learning how to be studious. And what ended up happening was my following year of my sophomore year, it was a bunch of biology pre-med students who came to my chemistry professor's office, and they were like, "Hey, we're failing chemistry. We don't know what to do. The professor can't teach." And mind you, this is around the time where Dr. Boyd was deceased, unfortunately, so they couldn't even go to him for help. So I was like the closest thing of him to get the help. And so I was like, I felt bad for them because I'm like, man, they want to be nurses so bad. And it's like, it sucks that chemistry one is the one class that's stopping them. So I was like, you know what? I'll help y'all. And so after that, I literally met up with those three students in the library, and I started to teach in the same manner that Dr. Boyd taught, and they understood me. And they understood me so well that they were like, dang, bro, that was really cool. Are you going to be a chemistry teacher? No. And the reason why I said no is because one of the first phrases ever told to me as a chemistry major is that chemistry is not for everybody, right? Ironic as hell. But I again, because of the skill that I developed, I end up making chemistry for everybody. So that phrase is debunked because of the way I know how to use colloquialisms to tie with the actual chemistry concepts to make people understand it. Um, and that's the problem. And so after that, those three students, next thing you know, fast track 3 months later, I was being passed around campus, and everyone started to know real fast that I was the go-to chemistry teacher for everybody. Now I used to like make a killing on the side for doing like chemistry homework and stuff like that. But then I got into a little bit of trouble. So my professors at the time were like, "Hey, we know your character. You were just trying to help. So we're gonna just like turn a blind eye to this, but don't do it again." So I didn't, but I still helped people if they needed help. So like if they reached out to me, if they needed tutoring and they were serious about their work, then I would actually tutor them for free because I saw it as a way for me to also gain experiences without in my skill that I was developing. But I was actually unaware of the skill I was developing. I just said yeah because I like helping people because I don't want when you're in college, right? Like everyone, especially when you meet your cohort, everybody wants to see everybody win. So that's what my mindset was. It was like I wanted to I wanted to see everybody win. So I don't mind help tutoring you in chemistry for free as much as you need it. Um, so fast track, like I said, I was pretty much like popular on campus as a chemistry guru. I graduated from Alcorn in 2020, and I became a chemist in that same year. So I worked for a pharmaceutical company, I worked for a cosmetic company, and I worked for a laundry company as a chemist. And those are the span of 3 years that I've been a chemist. And then when I was a laundry chemist, I was a technical service chemist for a laundry company. So what I did with that was that basically I just troubleshooted linen. So like how that looked was like, for instance, let's say like a hospital sent us like a bed spread and it had a blood stain on it. They would send it to me directly, and I would have to like conduct lab analysis to figure out what the stain is. And of course, we also had like this really big industrial washer and dryer at this facility. So I was also able to use like a lot more powerful chemicals and laundry detergents and other bleaches and stuff like that when it came to cleaning these different fields of linen. So it wasn't just medical, it was also like hospitality, restaurants, stuff like that. That was a really fun job. But what got to me was they wanted me to have a certain outcome with minimum resources. And that's unfortunately that's the theme everywhere as a chemist, unfortunately. So I ended up helping my cousin-in-law with chemistry. She was a sophomore. Her teacher did not know how to teach it. Her mom reached out to me and was like, "Hey, can you please help your little cousin pass?" And literally, she reached out to me 3 weeks as the year the school was closing. And so I taught her everything from chapter one all the way to the last chapter they were supposed to be in for that class in the span of 2 weeks. She passed the class and she had the highest final grade on the test. And I was like, okay, so I still got it, and so her mom reached out to me. She was like, "Hey, thank you so much. She passed with an A. She had the highest grade. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah." And I was just joking. I'm like, "All right, well, tell them to hire me," just joking. And next thing you know, she was like, "No, they got an application for you." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So that's how I got my way into education. But when I worked at that high school, they assigned me as a biology teacher. I didn't have no complaints with that because I have a minor in biochemistry, so I know all sciences. But however, there was friction in like the way I teach and the way they wanted me to teach. So that didn't last long, of course. But now I'm at a school in Gary, Indiana. I've been there for 2 years now, and they just let me be. They let me teach the way I need to teach, so therefore these kids can get it. Now the difference between the first high school I worked at and the school I work at now is that the first school were affluent kids. This school is low income kids. So, the mindset and the behaviors are different. And I actually like the low income side better because it allows me to be more flexible of my teaching style. Like I'm able to say things and I told them first day, like, hey, I'm the teacher who's going to say whatever I need to say to make sure you understand it. So it might get a little vulgar in here, but you're going to get it. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so once the first year, within that first 3 months of me working at the second school, I saw a lot of kids retaining my practices. So I was like, okay, no, this is a talent at this point. And that's when I thought about just trying my best to make science accessible, specifically chemistry first, because that's the hardest subject. We all know that. I got to put quotations on it because it's not hard. It's just that people or professors have been teaching it in a stereotypical way for a very long time, and no one has ever thought to break the mold. So that's why I just say it's not hard. Um, but so one of my first steps of making chemistry accessible was making my own business, of course, Dunn Solutions LLC, where I started off as being a STEM education consultant. But that is a very hard field to network your way inside of. I haven't got any traction in that part yet. So, what ended up happening was that I just thought to myself that, man, if only I could put my brain in a book, this would be so simple. And then I got introduced to Canva as a teacher, and I'm using Canva to make my slides and stuff. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why don't I just start this book? I'm gonna just start. And so chapter one was like scientific method. Like everybody know, or every science teacher knows that the first thing you should implement or teach is scientific method, which is observation, hypothesis, an experiment, analysis, conclusion. And the way I taught it to my first group of kids at the low income school was that I connected it to Scooby Doo. And then I asked them, hey, what other shows can you think about that follow this same theme throughout the entire show or movie? And they started naming all kinds of stuff. And again, it let me know that you all are retaining what I'm saying. But yeah, so when I started my ebook, after I made my scientific method page, that is what let me hit the ground running. Because the way the first page looked, it was like, oh, looks nice. This is just up my style. This is up my speed. So I initially made my book only 25 pages because we know people hate reading. So I try to make it convenient for people to get the same information without reading so much, like those traditional textbooks. They'd be like this thick. um, so the first book was 25 pages and only talked about 18 concepts only though, right? And then I started to like, pitch it and talk to other different people. And what ended up happening was is that I had a meeting with my alma mater, Alcorn, about my book. And they were saying that it's a good book, but they don't see it being used at the university. Right. So I was like, okay. And so they were saying like there are certain concepts and applications that are missing to where they wouldn't even you want to use it. And I'm like, okay. Because the reason why I brought it to them in the first place, because when I reached out to my prior professor or my former professor, she was saying that I was like, hey, how you been? It's been a long time talking to you. How's chemistry retention going on at the school? Because when I was there, chemistry retention was still a problem. So I'm just seeing if it's still a problem, did you fix it? And it actually got worse since I left. And so it was kind of contradicting to be like, oh, the retention got so much worse, but we're not going to use your book. So, um, yes, it hurt a little bit, but it made me go back to the drawing board, and that's how I came up with the actual college version Because it's like, okay, you know what? Because this book, the initial book that I made, it was for everybody, no matter what the grade level was. But the initial goal of that first book I made was to give you the main concepts that you're going to need help with in chemistry classes to make sure you do good, right? But because of all points response, it made me go over every concept in chemistry and just put it in the book and make it palatable for everybody to read. And since then, when I finished that book, that's when I built the confidence to actually try to sell it. And that's when I went on TikTok in June of 2025, made a video. I had 130,000 views within 3 days and made $1,000 within them same days as well. And so that let me know that I had something. And so since then, I just been very adamant and consistent on my entire journey.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you get that first rejection, it doesn't mean to quit. It just means, all right, well, and you made it even better, and it turned out even better. And I was gonna ask you my next question, like, why do you think so many people shy away from chemistry? But also, you already answered that because you said the first, I guess, lie or misconception that they tell you is that it's not for everyone. But in terms of your experience from the students that you started to help, especially maybe not well, all of them, because all of them got what you were teaching them. What were some of the things that you noticed that made it difficult for them to catch on before you taught them? Like what was the blockage? Is it just the speech that's used in the textbooks?
Yeah,
What is it?
it's the formality.
Hmm.
Ever since I honed in on my skill and I'm confident in my skill, I've been saying the same thing since then. And it's that formality kills the lecture. That's for any subject. It ain't just chemistry. If you are being formal, trying to be impressive to the students in front of you or adults or whatever, trying to come off as being smart or whatever, because you're using these high vernacular terms, you're explaining these processes in a very formal manner. That again, if a professor was to explain formality or was to explain chemistry in a formal manner to me, it's okay for me because again, I already have the foundations to keep up with the conversation. Whereas somebody who's never seen it, doesn't have any conceptualization of it, the formality automatically makes that person disconnect from the whole entire experience. And so um the reason why I figured that out is because of Dr. Boyd. Because when he explained it formally, we were all quiet. And then I think his story, he used like a cloud and a raindrop story. I can't really remember, but it was something very easy to digest. And it was also the same concept. Like the formality and the informality of explanations was no different from the actual chemistry concept. It's just that the language was different. And because I work with low income students from Gary, Indiana, you can't use those high vernacular terms. You just can't. If you want the students to succeed, you just can't. So these type of students deal with the stereotypical way of life when it comes to low income neighborhoods without saying too much. So, and I'm also from a low income area myself. So like I'm really what I try my best to say online a lot more is that I'm from the hood too. It's just that I'm the black person who was from the hood who made it out and got a college degree. So it's like I speak the same way that you do. It's just that now I can take our AAVE and explain and use it in a more positive manner to teach difficult subjects. Um, like I'll even give you an example. So like one of the kids, they like guns. So they had a hard time understanding metric unit system conversions, like kilograms to grams, liters to milliliters, stuff like that. So he's like, I ain't gonna lie, Mr. Dunn, I'm not getting it. Like I'm trying my best here. This is not working. It's not clicking. I'm like, you know what? Okay. I'm like, how many bullets in a gun? And he said nine. I said, okay, cool. So one G equals nine B. G is gun, B is bullets. If I got three guns, how many bullets do I got? and I literally, re-explained the conversion equation while using a conceptual unit that he's familiar with, which is guns and bullets, and literally, he got it. So it's like,
No, and that's the thing that has always been an issue in education. Like, I mean, I don't do chemistry. Lord knows, I do elementary. But that has always been an issue is the way for testing and everything, right? Like for certain children, the examples in the test just don't click. And do you think in that case, because I mean, I go off on all different tangents and Rockefeller made the school system and all that, but also not only just in general for all the masses, but especially the ones that suffer are the kids that happen to be kids of color, kids in lower income areas. My next question, do you think that that's on purpose? That
yeah.
certain subjects are taught are made to feel like you shouldn't be in there. You shouldn't be, don't worry about that. Don't worry about chemistry, don't worry about physics. You stick to the other things. What do you think? Do you think
So
so?
you got my body tingling because that really like because that's a magical question. You don't even understand how magical that question is, but the answer to it is yes.
Mm. Mm.
Yes, yes, a million times yes. Like because of my deep understanding of chemistry and the things that I figured out and philosophized, that's a different story or another story another day. It allowed me to find the truth of, oh, you don't want black people in this subject at all. You don't, because if you look at the more affluent neighborhoods, which of course we know is consisted of other ethnicities other than black, stereotypically, um, they do their darnest to make sure that those kids understand science and other difficult disciplines in school. Whereas low income schools, and now that I work at one, I see the issue. The issue of low income schools is that there's a teacher deficit guaranteed, right? So now it's to a point where you got these low income schools taking in almost anybody just to teach, just to hold a classroom together. I've met other science teachers who don't have a science discipline degree, and it's like okay, you know what? Cool, right? And so the reason why it is done on purpose is because melanin. Melanin is one of the best conductors of electricity in this entire world, and it's found on our skin. There are so many things that melanin can do. Again, I'm not gonna go into it, but just know that it can do some things that you would never have fathomed. Um, and um, because of that, right? The the standard in healthcare is white people. You know that for a fact because when you go to those hospital offices or the doctor offices, you see a diagram of a white person instead of a black person. And almost every diagram you see inside of a hospital is geared towards white representation. And so now when you see that, you have to realize that medicine is made without the consideration of black people. And then at the same time, that same medicine is being monopolized against black people. And at the same time, black people is the biggest ethnicity that has the most disconnection of science. It's everything clicks so much to the point where you can't ignore it no more. It's like, nah, y'all up to something. Like you are literally gatekeeping us from this subject. And again, going back to teachers. So like the reason why chemistry has always been so difficult to understand or teach is because people who understand it from the formal lens just happen to get lucky is what it is. So like um they intentionally created a academic elitism within that subject. Because think about it, when people understand chemistry without the teachings from me, right? They just say they understand it like for what it is. They quick to be like, "Oh, I get it. You don't. Oh, I'm gonna move forward. You can't." You know what I'm saying? Like when people understand chemistry, hardly ever someone's gonna reach back out and say, "Hey, I get it. Let's go over it." You know what I'm saying? People who understand chemistry usually just take it and run by themselves with it and don't even think to even try to teach
Help
one.
others. Yeah.
I'm saying right. I've seen that in college. Like I've seen other chemistry majors who were very stingy with their knowledge with other peers because they didn't want to get sidetracked or be a nuisance, right? And so the people who decide to go back to education to help people understand chemistry are the same people who learn chemistry from that very difficult lens. So it's basically like it's repetition. You know what I'm saying? It's just memory. Like this is what your brain remembered of learning it. So as a teacher, you're going to go back and you're going to use that same memory to try to teach others, and it doesn't work because not everyone is the same. We all know that. So formality is a very fixed window for people to understand chemistry, whereas informality opens it. And again, I'm probably one, well, other than Dr. Boyd, I'm the second person who figured that out.
No, and I think that's a really good point that you made. Either it's regurgitation that they're just basically reteaching the ones that try to help and that did get it, or the ones that really got it, it's the classism kind of thing. Well, you're on your own, and
You're on
that's
your own. Yep.
I was smart, I got it, and that's it. And one of the things that I know that I saw in one of the videos that you spoke about, and I didn't, because even when you were telling me like what you did with that degree, like I was like, oh crap, that's what a chemist does. Because I wouldn't even know that you guys like. I mean, I know like I'm from New York. I remember we had John Jay College. Like if you wanted to work in like investigative things, like I guess when like there's a crime, you're like, is that
Forensics.
what the chemist does also? Like you guys
Yeah, forensics. Yep.
forensics, exactly, there's the word. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like I know you guys do like things like that, but I didn't know per se. Like if you would ask me like what do you do with a chemistry degree, I'm not even exactly sure. But precisely the things that you just told me, I think that is important because in one of the videos that you spoke about, you were besides you said it's good to have more Black people, more people of color in general in healthcare, because we can go into a whole thing on how people of color have been treated in healthcare,
Uh-huh.
even though again they've many times used people of color to come to their what should I
Their
say,
medical discoveries.
their discoveries, right? We know a lot of history with the gynecology and all that.
Hmm.
um so I'm just saying these are the things that a lot of kids, and I'm going to say kids or kids in high school, whatever, maybe they're not aware of yet. They don't know all of those details. They're just looking at it as a basic subject. And it's like, if I pass it, if I don't, then it's whatever. But there, it is important because one of the things you mentioned, and I thought was really important, was about how you knowing about your periodic table and you knowing combinations of things can really help you make better decisions related to food and medicine, vaccines, things of that nature. Tell me a little bit more about that in relation to let's talk about the periodic table and the and things related to that.
Okay. So the periodic table. Now as a chemist, one of the biggest conceptions of being a chemist or a scientist is that people assume that we just know the entire periodic table and we know every molecule, we know every chemical function of a molecule or element and stuff like that, and that's actually not true. There's some things that I don't understand on the periodic table. Do I know it? Like, do I know the number, the weight, the symbol? Yeah, I do. But as far as like making a molecule out of it, some again, but especially in medicine, right? There's just certain medicine that you just can't pronounce or you have a very hard time pronouncing. So when it comes to those type of like nomenclatures or molecules, like no, I don't really know much, but at the same time, by having a foundational knowledge of how the periodic table works and how elements work, you can kind of like have an intuitive sense of like this can't be good. You know what I'm saying? Um, like for instance, so like what helped me conceptualize it for real was that when I was a cosmetic chemist, I work directly with titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is a hydrophobic white powder that goes inside of sunscreen and makeup. This is why it's hard for this is why when you layer yourself up with sunscreen and you got that white cast on your skin, that's the titanium dioxide. It's really thick and really hydrophobic. Or like when you put on foundation is also titanium dioxide as a base, which is why you know what I'm saying when you pour water on it or you got to use a special type of like aqueous liquid to remove it from your skin and stuff. That's why that same component is inside of junk food. Now, if if I did not work with titanium dioxide and found that out, would I have conceptualization of it? No, I wouldn't have, because it's like I didn't work with it hands on to know exactly what it does. But because I worked with it hands on and I know what it's completely capable of, it was like, oh, that's in food, you know. And I was having to talk with my wife about this. I was telling her how, as a chemist, I want to have a way better understanding of the periodic table than what I already have myself already. Because again, it helps you conceptualize the harm that is going inside of medicine and food. Um, One of the best ways for people to probably conceptualize that is if they were to research the product or research the chemical and just read all about it, honestly. Like I don't think they would hide information on what the chemical does, you know. So you just have to just be proactive and just like look it up and see what's up. But at the same time, it can only be so helpful. What another aspect that helps out a lot is if you understand the the anatomy of an atom. You know what I'm saying? So like knowing that carbon has six protons, six neutrons, and six electrons, and knowing where those electrons exactly are within the orbitals, because there's seven orbitals, just so you know, there are seven rings or seven orbitals. So like for the composition of carbon, having six electrons, there are two electrons in the first orbital, and then there's four in the second orbital. So when you have this depth of knowledge, again, it just kind of helps you look at everything way different.
Yeah, definitely. Because especially, I mean, I don't like you said, I don't think they would hide it in the food. I think they tell us
They tell you,
everything.
they have to tell you.
They
That's fact. They have to tell you what's in it, but
yeah.
they don't tell you what it does.
What
You know
it
what I'm saying?
does. And unfortunately, and they've done studies on this in certain lower income neighborhoods. I mean, it's harder sometimes to even get fresh food. You have like the delis, the bodegas, and all that. And they usually sell a lot of products that are processed and things like that. And you're putting in your body, you're reading it, but you really don't know. Goes the same way with you said makeup as well. They've done studies on this and they've talked about that. And they even say like in terms of like hair care, especially in the Black community, there's a lot of chemicals that are involved in the things that we use for our hair and stuff like that. And we know it, even if even if sometimes we continue using it. But I think that the reason why it doesn't hit that way sometimes is precisely for that reason, because you really don't know what exactly you're just hearing it. It's not the same when you really look at the chemical and you see, just to give you an example, my grandmother's from the Caribbean. So one of the things that they said that they would do is they would use Coca-Cola to clean things with once upon a time, like years before, right? But we drink
I don't know.
Coca-Cola. Yeah, we drink Coca-Cola, but we still drink Coca-Cola. But you know
Not
what I'm trying
me.
to
Not
no, you
me.
don't
Mm-mm.
do you know
Look,
what it does?
yeah. Oh yeah.
But just so
I
in
don't
case
drink it.
people don't know, they used to use it for cleaning,
Mhm.
right? So
To
that
clean yeah, it's used to clean the calcium buildup on battery terminals or
mhm.
battery nodes. Yeah.
And it goes into our system. So those are the things that I
Everything.
think that if we understood and one of the theories I always have, and this is going into like my spiritual side of what I talk about, is a lot of the things the reason why, if you look at many other countries in the world, I'm in the Mediterranean, and the food here is much more natural than in the United States and even in England, these areas. And my theory is always, all right, this is my theory, that the souls maybe that incarnate in those areas, they're just too quick. So they got to pump us with more, they got to pump us with more chemicals to make you kind of, not so busy, make you a little bit more foggy in the brain. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was also because I saw you were talking about frequency. Also, you were talking
Oh,
about
that's
how
cool.
in certain areas, right? You said that how the area is related to the people, is related to
The
like,
food
the
and
food.
everything.
Just break that down just a little bit, just so that the audience can have an idea.
I got you. So before I get started, I want to let you know that I am also spiritual. I like to call myself a spiritual chemist or a spiritual scientist because again, I'm able to see science in a different way that no one else can. And that video that you just mentioned is a perfect example of it. Frequency, right? So frequency, we all know is waves. You have low frequency and you have medium frequency and you got high frequency, right? Frequency, they never tell you this because they don't want you to know this. Frequency is the skeletal structure of energy. Okay? We know sometimes energy, right? That there's lights or like me talking, you talking, or like how the screen is uh casting light into your cornea to see and all that, right? We're seeing lights or we're seeing energy, but you can't see the waves. We cannot perceive wavelengths, right? However, we can perceive there's only one, I'm sorry, with throughout the entire electromagnetic spectrum, right? Because you got microwaves, radio waves, infrared waves, and you got the color, then you got the rainbow, sunlight, then you got X-ray, gamma rays, and all that, right? Again, everything I just mentioned is a part of that electromagnetic spectrum. I want you to know, or I want the audience to know that everything you look at, everything that you experience, hear, touch, whatever the case may be, is frequency at its core. They don't want, this is why chemistry is gate kept from people like us. Because when you start to sit with the foundational knowledge like I did, you start to look at the metaphysical things. You go, oh, I see it all, right? And so to get more into the video, I understand. So now, again, now that you understand frequency, the skeletal structure, everything, you have to now you have to acknowledge that there's low frequency and there's high frequency, right? So low frequency, it's not a bad thing, but it can be bad if used in the wrong manner, especially if the frequency is really low, like really, really low, right? That's when it's bad. When the frequency barely moves, that's bad. You don't want you don't want to be around that. And unfortunately, that's what is consistent throughout all low income areas. So now going back to frequency is in everything. It's in education. That's the first form of hijacking the brain. That's the very first form of it because the more knowledge is power, right? That's not just a that is such a powerful phrase. Again, people don't understand people don't understand chemistry, so you don't really understand that knowledge is power for real. You know what I'm saying? So because education is tampered with in low income areas, that makes people that induces people to be stupid. Just keep it a being, right? And the less you know, the more easy it is to control you or to watch your movements. So education, because again, they're not teaching the kids, they're not adamant about teaching the kid, they're not right. So now, first rip, the child's brain is low frequency. It's not active. It's not highly active, which is bad. We all know that. So then now you throw in trap music, right? Trap music consists of killing, stealing, sex, guns, all the negative things to think about, right? So now you have a person who doesn't have critical thinking skills or just didn't have the ability to think at all. Then they're being swallowed by uh trap music or drill music involuntarily because again that music just goes throughout the entire hood and then so then and of course those kids gravitate toward the type of music because that's the parents is too or that's what they just hear down the street, right? And so now kids love to think that, oh, I'm not easily influenced, right? But yet this is why low income areas are stereotypically violent because the music is persuading them to be violent. Not persuading, it's inducing them to do it. Literally. Like it's like, someone taking a gun and they say, "Oh, I hear voices," and you know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. Like the lyrics of the music is the voices that they hear to enact those experiences. And so then let's move over to environment. trash everywhere, grass overgrown. It just doesn't look pleasant to the eye, right? So to the average human, those environments look unwelcoming and just an eyesore. But if you were to use your frequency lens of it, you will understand that the trash on the street is emitting low frequency. The grass that's not cut neatly is emitting low frequency. The boarded up houses, the burnt down houses that was never cared for afterwards, those inanimate objects is literally emitting frequency at all times. But you just don't know that because of the disconnect of chemistry knowledge. So in energy does not, okay, that's another thing. Energy is not created nor destroyed. It only transfers and transforms. So just because this house burnt down and now it's just burnt to a crisp and you can still see the infrastructure, but and you just looking at it as like, oh, it's just a whatever. No, that house is literally emitting the frequency that allows that makes you stay in this environment. It's literally affecting your mindset. You just don't even know it. And so then going into food deserts, like you just said it. It's very hard for black people to get their hands on high quality produce. And there's a gas station on every corner. There's a smoke shop on every corner. So like these gas stations and smoke shops, they sell snacks. They don't sell nothing healthy. You'll never catch an orange in a in a gas station. You'll never catch a banana in a gas station. That is systemically placed on purpose, and it's negative frequency placed on purpose. You feel me? And so now the person is not smart. They're listening to drill and trill music. They live in a bando or they stay next to a bando, if you know what that means, right? Okay. Um, and they barely eating fruit and vegetables. You seeing that? Like
Locking down the vibration, keeping it all.
locking down,
Mhm.
perfect. Yes, locking down the vibration. And then notice in the video, right? I made the spiral effect because that's what's happening. Like energy naturally moves in a circular motion. This, it's a fact because when you look at nature, everything is spherical, so to speak. Anything that is boxy or rectangulish, that's man-made. Every single thing that exists outside of man-made is circular. So the energy that they conduct onto these environments is spiraling. Think about a toilet bowl, right? The top, and then as it goes down, it gets faster or it gets more dense, right? And just like how I'm from Chicago, so let me explain Chicago in a sense. Chicago is like a big old number grid. So the deeper you move into it, the more violent it gets. The more you move out of it, the less safe it is. So, like for instance, like the heart of Chicago, let's say that'll be like 38th Street and King Drive. That's like right before downtown where it gets nice at. So right in that area is like it's the ghetto, it's the projects, people be dying left and right, people strung out and all type of negative things. But if you start to move or if you start to move away from that location, right? Like right now I'm in Indiana. I'm 40 minutes from Chicago and I'm in the suburbs. I'm safe. If you were to go the other direction of Chicago, you will go into downtown, which is again safe. Some people who are black in Chicago never been downtown because they're too poor to do it. So that is a financial paywall that poor people can't even cross over to this place to keep it safe. Again, it's a form of energy manipulation via frequency. Um, and so And there's another medium I thought about. Let's see, education, food, environment. Oh, people, people. There we go. That's the last one. People. So, because people who come from low income high schools don't go off to do better things. They stay within that ignorant mindset. That ignorant mindset starts to cultivate others within that clique, right? And then that's why people become a bad influence to onto others. Sometimes people don't even have to even talk to each other or even interact with each other, but yet this person or this group has an influence on this individual. That's the same thing. So like gangs, right? Bloods and Crips, right? And Vice Lords and all that. Like these little kids who be outside jump roping, racing, running with their bikes and stuff, they're also seeing the effects or the actions of these gangs. And that also influences the child to act differently innately. Like, again, all of these things are placed carefully. Like, nothing that exists for no reason. Everything has a reason of existence, whether you can see it or not. It exists for a reason and it's placed perfectly in their eyes. And it is. I mean, I'm gonna lie to you, like, it's been a couple times I'll tell myself, like, man, whoever conducted this place, kudos to them. Top, I can't even lie. Like, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Like, they did their big one. They made sure that no one or hardly anybody can escape this. And it's like it's cartoon level genius.
No, and like I said, I grew up in Queens and in New York, and it's
Oh,
only after I
goodness.
moved to the Mediterranean and I can now like look at certain things and you see it and you see how another culture functions and you see it even more. Like you see it even more how like isn't that interesting how they did all those things to us to make the pressure, even the distractions and all of the you notice it. You notice it and you
Mhm.
see the quality of life and how you feel vibrationally in other regions versus when you go back home or when you know what I mean. One of the
Mhm.
things I was going to ask you because of this, not because obviously not it's not and it's not to say that everybody who or people who are grow up in those environments stay stuck because again, they're people who rise above it. And we
Right.
have a
That's
lot
that's
of people.
accountability.
Hmm. So, but I always say crabs in a barrel when you are the one to try to get out of that environment and you're trying to do something different. Did you have any kind of experience like becoming a chemistry teacher in that sense or doing something different or like did you feel like or it was it in your case it wasn't that bad, like did you feel like you got criticism for wanting to go back and help kids like learn or from inner cities? Not too much, right?
No.
Only maybe
Thankfully,
in the affluent areas that were
yeah.
more
So
like they didn't want to change.
yeah, so like what I would say is like from childhood, everybody who I associated with, they I hung with good people. I was already like without even having this type of knowledge, I innately already knew how to like surround myself around good people. Now, are they productive? Not really, but they're good people. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a chemist, I'm a chemistry teacher. I got friends who work at like Amazon warehouse and stuff like that. And again, like they're not productive, but they were good people. They never talked down on me. They never tried to persuade me to do differently. Like they knew, and that's another thing too. Like I went to college for 7 years. Like because of my non-studious activities, it costed me 3 extra years in school. So it took me 7 years to get a 4 year degree. And throughout that 7 years, I was never castrated for going back to school consistently. Like, did I miss a lot of birthdays? Did I miss a lot of events? Did I miss a lot of canon? Yeah, I did. But my friends and my associates understood what I was doing, and they again they're supportive. They never thought to bring me down. Now, what I will say is that had I not had the strong mindset, their low frequency mindset would have pulled me down and would have deterred me from finishing. You know what I'm saying? That goes back to the whole people, low vibrational people are an influence whether they like it or not, even if they don't try to. You know what I'm saying? Because again, these are people like when I come home from college, these are people I'm around, hanging out with, doing things with, you know what I'm saying? And they do what they do. But again, I could have very much been like, you know what? I miss my homies. I'm tired of school. It's taking too long. I'm gonna just quit, pick up a job, and just be around y'all on the block all day. I could have very much done that. But because of my mindset, due to the education I was offered in high school, because I didn't go to a low income school. I went to a pretty decent school. So, and I'm also naturally smart. It's just that I was lazy. That's really what it was. So because of my innate intelligence, it allowed me to stay the course, literally.
And one more thing I wanted to talk about because you mentioned it before, and I forgot. So another thing that I think is really interesting, like you said, if people, especially people of color, Black people, knew about chemistry, especially how we have melanin, we would also know a lot of the things that we can use to lift up our frequency, like certain metals, like copper, things like that,
Yes.
that we always like mention. What are, I don't know if you know anything about that, but what are some of the metals that help, I guess, conduct melanin the best?
Copper. You literally said it. It's copper's the number one, literally. Now there are other metals that we do need as far as like allowing the body to function, like potassium and magnesium and calcium here and there. But again, those are metals that the body needs in order to do their metabolic functions. But when it comes to raising the vibrations of a person, it's copper. But not only metals, but again, and that's what I did not explain in my video with the low frequency thing, because now that's why I made the video, because it's like I want you to see this, and now that you see it, I want you to understand, and I didn't say in the video, but I'm telling you now in the audience, that you want to do the exact opposite thing of the low frequency subject. You know what I'm saying? So for instance, like, okay, education is misconstrued off the rip, right? So if you know that poor education is going to turn you into a certain person potentially, you have to be you have to be, what's the word? Um Jesus. Intentional. Sorry. You have to be intentional with learning. You have to be intentional with self learning and self teaching yourself to combat the low frequency education they're giving you. Food, or no, music. Music, again, because you know what this music is doing to you on a frequency level, you now have to be intentional with shifting your likeliness of music. So like, again, I'm from the hood. I listen to everything. I'm very eclectic when it comes to music. I listen to Chief Keef, Linkin Park, Luke Bryan. Like, I listen to everything, right? But once I figured that out, because of my eclecticness of music, it was very easy for me to just dish out the bad and keep the good. But for somebody who only listens to bad, they're gonna have a really hard time getting away from that music to listen to other music, because I see it in kids today. Like, again, low comes kid. I'll play, like, I'm the teacher to play music in my room. I play all kind of music. So sometimes I'll play like Sweater Weather, you know that song. And so some of the kids who are a little too street, like, Mr. Dunn, what you got on the screen, man? This ain't, no, this booty, bro. This ain't it, man. This song suck. Open, and I talk to them, but yeah, but it's like, even then, and I'll be, okay, well, what song you finna put on? And they'll put on something hot, real hot, guns in the video and everything. I'm just like, yeah, nah, cut it off. We're done. And because I taught my I taught my students about the frequency of music, so they know, well, of course, that was what I was experiencing in the first half of the semester. But now in this semester, it's like they know, hey, only put on chill songs. Mr. Dunn ain't going for that. Because and then kids, they love, and now again, because they know so much about frequency, they be like, "Oh, you low frequency? Oh, you bad?" You know what I'm saying? That, oh, I'm high vibrational. You get away from me. So it's like I'm teaching the metaphysical sciences as well as the academic one to really make it click for them. For that's how I'm able to keep my room engaged the entire time with me, because it's like, oh, you're not just talking about academics, you're talking about some real stuff here, and you're making connections here, you know what I'm saying? um and then, like, again, with like environment, right? The hood is usually dirty, so if someone can just go outside, clean up their yard, clean up their house, keep it clean, you know what I'm saying? Like, cleanliness, what's that phrase?
Cleanliness
Cleanliness
is
is
godliness.
supposed to, yeah, 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 that's true. That is a frequency phrase. That is an energetic phrase. Cleanliness is godliness, and dirtiness is not godliness. You are in a low vibrational environment right now with their house or with whatever you're around that's dirty or cluttered, whatever, you are currently surrounded or you're subjecting yourself to this low vibrational state. Um, and then there's food. Now that's the hard part. That's why I want to bring that in last because I know, they got us in a chokehold with this food because it's really hard to grow food. It's really hard to do a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's really hard to gain independence on food. That's like the hardest thing right there, right? And again, it's scientifically placed there for a reason. Excuse me. But if someone was to be a gardener or a farmer and really get to it and grow crops and eat only their crops, oh yeah, you are literally pulling and the more you practice high vibrational activities, your brain will automatically pull itself from the low vibrational environment you were just in. This is why people are able to leave the hood. Literally, if you don't do the vice versa of these negative frequency subjections, you're staying there. But if you start to fight against it, you literally will start to separate yourself from the hood, not just mentally, but physically. For instance, I went to college, right? My education was the very first form of high frequency that I experienced for myself that allowed me to live outside of the hood. And now I'm in the suburbs of Indiana. Are my friends still there? Yes, because they don't know what to do, you know? Or like, say for instance, somebody in the hood, or like, those women, sometimes more is stereotypically it's women, but a woman would she'll own a business, she'll work real hard on it, and she starts to make a lot of money from it, right? But when you own a business, you're learning. It don't have to be academic knowledge that you have to gain in order to raise your brain activity frequency and move on. No, it just learn something, right? That's why women, again, stereotypically, who own businesses or who start up businesses, they do a lot of learning in that process. And that learning with application to it allows them to make more money. And then money itself is also a frequency. And of course, no money is low frequency. A lot of money is high frequency. So because she was able to improve the frequency output of her brain due to her owning a business, doing all the trial and tribulations and learning processes, it allowed her to gain the money that allowed her to move outside the hood. And that's just one medium. Even with people with food, right? If people, let's say somebody who they had bad education, they in a dirty house, let's say it's all that, right? But the only thing this person is doing is eating healthy. That eating healthy will be just enough to make you think differently and start to do better. And then, like you said, surely you will start to separate yourself from that environment. This is why they say ignorance. This is why they also say ignorance is bliss. If you
Yeah.
don't know, right?
Yeah, and like you said, all it takes is maybe sometimes just getting the opportunity, and that opportunity can come through education. And I think that you yourself are a good example of that. Number one, the reason why I even admired and wanted you to come on to this podcast was that concept that you saw the importance in trying to go back and help others learn and all the kids to get an opportunity so that they could eventually also in the future be able to get into these kinds of careers where they can continue helping others, right?
Exactly.
So I'm gonna just mention about your book one more time. Again, your book is called Simple Solutions to Understanding Chemistry, General Chemistry 1. And your ultimate goal for this book, what are your expectations? How far do you think is going to go?
Okay. I see it going so far to the point where it's going to produce a surplus of Black healthcare professionals and STEM occupants, and it's going to also bring rise to a new era of Black inventors. Notice how everything from like the late 1800s to like the almost mid 1900s, there have been a lot of inventions by Black people.
Mhm, mhm. We
In order
weren't
to,
taught about it until late. I learned about all most of the inventors I learned about that were black. I learned about it like way later, like when I was in
yeah,
high
high
school and
school.
college.
Yeah.
It wasn't what they necessarily taught us when we were in elementary, but yes, there were
Right.
many.
So, the average adult black person knows that everything made was made by us, and everything made consists of science. Again, that same subject is the most distorted to us, which is why there has been a dramatic pause of black inventions. So when black people start to pick up science again, like our forefathers did, you will start to see way more inventions by black people, which will then make society better. And on top of that, again, by making everybody smart in this subject, we will be one step closer to creating Black Wall Street 2.0. That's my goal. We need our own everything. Um, Somebody in history, I ain't gonna say, I don't know what your preface is, but somebody in history set us back. I ain't gonna say no names, but they set us back. And I'm trying to reset us forward.
Yeah.
The only way to set us forward is through education. I also want to say about my book is that not only do I have a college version, the general chemistry one is the college version. I also have a high school version and a middle school version for kids who are in those subjects at an early age, because I want everybody to understand this stuff. But
Yeah,
that's where I see my
that would be good, especially if you start it from earlier, because I think sometimes if the concepts are taught earlier, by the time you get to
book.
high school, it's a little bit easier.
So like right now, everybody on TikTok has been pushing me to make an elementary version. I never thought about making an elementary version, but I guess I could explain how the rainbow moves, I guess, and how water precipitates and condenses. So I'm gonna have to get on that real soon. But yeah, that's everything though.
Yeah, and if you see that that book becomes very successful, you could even, like you said, do other subjects like in
Oh, I
biology,
will. I will.
stretch it out, and
I
mhm.
so like because we know that McGraw Hill and all the other educational platforms are basically propaganda and white supremacists. I am currently working on building my own educational empire to truthfully teach our kids, because the books that they produce, it's passive on purpose. My books or the things that I will make will be inclusive. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Derrick, and I hope it comes to pass in that way because I think that we need it. And if anybody wants any more information related to Derrick, I'll leave everything in the description and the link to his book. And yeah, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
No problem. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. I had fun. It's great to run across somebody else who's spiritual as well. So this is really easy conversation.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you guys subscribe so that you never miss another important event or podcast. And bye-bye.